Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast podcast, YouTube video interview program that features me talking to some of the best and brightest in the atheist / secular / awesome community. This is episode number 105. I'm recording live on July 25th, 2017. Yes, this will be probably a fairly short episode of just me talking, but I figured I need to at least get a show on this week, so here we are. I want to give love to last week's guests. We'll be talking about them a lot. I'm going to refer to them as Brexy. That's the new hot couple name that we have here. And I got myself a little fur papa, a little bit of wine, a little bit of juice of the grape. Brian and Lexi. I will call them the clear MVPs of the weekend in Chattanooga. So let me just talk about this conference. So after the Nashville Nuns conference happened, which was, gosh, if I only remembered how long ago that was, I believe that lit a fire under the Chattanooga freethinkers and skeptics and atheists. So Tad, who organized this along with the Scenic City Skeptics and a few other Chattanooga people, decided to put together a conference. And their idea was to have something pretty similar to the Nashville Nuns. I mean, the Nashville Nuns was definitely set up as a non-believer conference, but believers would definitely okay. And look who's here. I think, do we have a visitor? It's funny. People are like stalking the atheist page. Hey there, Scott. What's happening? It's perfect. See, we can have an outsider get the inside scoop on what actually happened. Are you in the room? I see you. He's talking with text. This is why we're professionals here. Let me take just a second to adjust my screen so I can actually talk back. This is Scott Smith of Recovering from Religion, Freedom from Religion, all those things. How you doing? Look at you. You got like a professional studio and all.
Hey, Zach. How's it going?
Good, good. I just started talking about my exciting weekend in Chattanooga, and then look at you popping in.
Yeah, I want to hear all about it. I heard it was a pretty good time.
It was fun. I don't know. It feels weird talking to myself when someone else is right there staring at me, but I guess we can keep that going. Feel free to interrupt or ask questions at any time. And hi.
Well, I want to mute my microphone because the family just walked in, so I'll let you just continue to carry on.
Okay. Basically, yeah, so this was based on the Nashville Nuns Conference, which happened a few months ago, and I think a good time was had by all at that one. But Chattanooga is a little bit of a smaller town, and so they were able to put something together. And the good part was I got to road trip with some of my favorite heathens, including the famous Hugh Man. I got to meet him at his house and ride up in his vintage 1990 Corvette, which he actually has had retrofitted with a little Apple Play so he can use his phone with it. The only problem with the 1990 Corvette is it has 1990 air conditioning, and it really took a while for that thing to kick in as we were going up. But there are some people in the atheist community that, now I know that Hugh's been on a few shows and he's kind of taken a break from that sort of thing. Oh, Jeannie said wants me to catch up. No, I will not stop talking. Everybody's trying to distract me tonight. It's not fair. I'll just tell her to speed up. Anyway, so we drove up together in the car. We had a nice chat. It's good to get to talk to somebody sort of in the community to get a feel for some things that you don't get to talk to other people about as often as you want to. But we got to the, let's see, what is it? It was like an old train stop. It was a place that makes its own beer in Chattanooga. So we got there at like 1:30. And of course, I ordered the sampler. You got to get the whole beer experience. So I ordered that thing. And the Doblers showed up, Misty and Jim, another couple who seem to pop up at every atheist event because they obviously don't like where they live in Salisbury, North Carolina. Don't blame you there. But we hung out, had a few drinks, talked for a bit. And then, considering that our dinner plans were at 9 o'clock and we're old, we took a nap, and that was great. That was not the highlight of the weekend, but it was pretty good. But before we got to take our nap, Brian had told me about a beer place that I should visit, and it was just across the border from Tennessee and Georgia. And they had a bunch of stuff that I can't find in Georgia or find in Atlanta, including this beauty here, this Sweetwater. This is their bourbon barrel stout. Quite good. They had a bunch of it. I could have sold the store out of it if I wanted to. And this beer, I got it mainly for the name. You know, when you get a beer for their name, it doesn't always work up. This is called Dirty Commie Heathen from Unknown Brewing. This is a Russian stout. Let's see, what is in this sucker here? Bourbon aged oak and red cherries. Yes, sir, I will take that. So we took a nap, and then we traveled to a very nice former mansion, now restaurant, called the Back Inn Cafe. And I know that sounds a little dirty, but that's what we got to work with. So Brian told a large group of people attending this conference to come on up. Nobody knows the secret that he's going to propose to Lexi. And so we all hung out and pretended like we didn't know anything and tried to have beverages to make us forget what we knew. And then finally around dessert time, Brian snuck out. And what's great about today's society is an entire table of people can point their cameras at you, and you don't think there's anything really that weird about it, as everybody was trying to get a Facebook or some kind of video of the proposal. So if you go to Facebook and pretty much anybody who was at the conference, you're going to figure out what happened. So he proposed. She said yes. The party continued. Bobby and Ashley showed up a little bit later, and Ashley talked them into giving her a go cup of sweet tea, which I believe was Crown and Coke. So that was night one. Can we top night one? Well, kind of, sort of. So we didn't really, I'd say, party like normal at these conferences. We had to get up early. The conference started at 8:30 the next morning. Mandisa was talking of the black non-believers, so we all had to show up on time. So yeah, that's right. All day Saturday, I was in a Methodist church hanging out. I can't remember that. I can't remember anything right now. I should really have taken a little bit better notes in this, but that's okay. This is how things go. This is professional here, Scott. Take notes. I see you taking notes right there. Look at him. So what happened during the day is there were usually 4 different talks scheduled every hour for the conference. So what I would do is I'd just kind of pop in and hang out for like 15 minutes. So the first hour, there was an atheist in foxholes talk with some military veterans. Had Jenico and Patrick Crail. You can't look at them directly because they're too attractive, so you kind of have to look at them at an angle. And they kind of were talking about their journey of coming out and what to do with people who come out and how to help them. And I tried to get back because there was a panel, an interfaith panel, that included pretty much every denomination known to man. And by the time I got there, the Muslim guy was finishing up. I'll say Muslim guy because I'm not sure if he's imam or just a representative or what. But each person was kind of introducing themselves, and he was talking about how after the shooting in Chattanooga, where the extremist guy shot up and killed some soldiers, that some local Christian churches were having gatherings to basically bash on Muslims, and the guy wanted to talk back, but they wouldn't let him. So he finally showed up and tried to ask some questions, saying, would you judge Christianity as harshly as Islam based on a literal reading of the scripture? Which I don't know if that necessarily stopped them, but unfortunately, because everybody talked so much, it went over time. There really wasn't time for any questions. So we did our lunch. We hung out in the afternoon. I did miss in the morning they had a podcast gathering, and it included Bobby and Ashley and the Crasher, one Chris Watson, Podunk. and of course Scenic City. They smartly put themselves up with Ashley and Bobby to talk. So we had lunch. We had Moe's. The only problem with Moe's is you end up eating about 3 plates more than you should, and then you're a little bit draggy. But in the afternoon, I tried to watch some of the other talks. Chris Silver was talking about authoritarianism. I just remember he did a Game of Thrones quote, "I drink and know things," which the first part is accurate for me. I met a local woman, Sonica Lee, who talked about flow, about keeping your flow, which I know sounds a little weird in this sort of thing, but I think it was good for us to maybe do a little left turn during the conference and kind of hang out. So what was it like? Interesting. Message retracted. So we showed up on stage for our podcast discussion, and the podcast discussion featured Jen of Not Another Atheist Podcast, Tucker of Atheists in the Trailer Park, Professor Fuzznuts Jr., by the way, I'm with Chris. I'd never heard the Jr. before. And of course, Chris Watson of the I Crashed the Morning podcast thing and didn't learn anything, and Podunk Polymath. And by the way, Chris did his own quick recap of the conference. So he's already got me. He beat me again. He's such a bastard. But we were in the main room, and there were maybe 10 people in the audience. And we didn't really have anyone from the conference saying, hey, you should start, or any kind of moderator. So we just kind of had to wing it. So I basically just leaned up to the microphone and said, "Welcome to the podcaster session," something like that, because we had to kind of break the ice. The problem was there was just no ice to break. There wasn't a lot of reaction for the audience that we had. I didn't really realize that we had sound people who actually were this older couple from the church. They'll come into play in a few minutes. So we just kind of started, and we kind of talked, and I would ask a question, and the rest of the crowd would answer it, and then maybe someone else would ask a question. And we went around and finally got to the point where we were asking the audience if they had any questions, and there wasn't much coming up. And then a certain gentleman in the second row raised his hand and said, "Hey, I'm a Christian, and I believe in Jesus, and I think Donald Trump was sent here to save us. And what do you think about that?" And I know you're hearing this now and going, yeah, that sounds a little bit not so real. But we took it as real. And Tucker had a pretty solid, 5-minute rant and response. I think everybody else was going to follow suit. But I basically just said, hey, thanks for asking a question. And I think if we had asked this question to start, it would have taken an hour. And, well, this really has nothing to do with the podcasts we do. So I ended up cutting it off at about 45 minutes. And, of course, it turned out that guy was trolling us, of course. And I didn't know whether to thank him or to kind of go, upside the head, just because really wasn't helping the situation. Apparently, the sound people were not thrilled by the cursing that happened during our session. I think if you're going to put on people on a podcast panel who do curse on their show, decent chance they're going to curse. Now, I know you should consider your location. If you're in a church, if you're in somebody's house, you shouldn't, spit on the floor, or you shouldn't do something that would really upset them. But then again, we rented the place out. And I think the church does that from time to time. And they're just going to let people on. I think I felt bad after the fact because of what happened, and because it was a bit disorganized. And really, I know the other people on the podcasting panel. Could have talked to them in advance. We could have worked something out. But we just winged it a little bit like I'm winging it tonight. And it turned out that way. Now, Bobby showed up to save us and did the last session of the day, and did a talk about kind of, in a way, he set up the talk to talk about how atheists can talk to Christians, but I really think he was trying to talk to the two sound people who are at the church. Hey, how about here's how you can talk to atheists, and here's how we're not totally, terrible human beings. And once you get to know us, we're pretty good people. So we, finished up the show, and Mandisa appeared to us kind of close it up. And Ted said bye, and also that he was going to go to a local watering hole to hang out after the fact. So I got together with the crew I was hanging out with. So it was Bobby and Ashley and Hugh and the Doblers. And since we're all staying at the same hotel, we kind of had to hang out. So we went back to our place, and then we ended up going to dinner and meeting with, I'm just calling them Brexy. From now on, they're Brexy. Brian and Lexi had dinner in a nice German restaurant. I had a really good key lime goza with vanilla. It was from a place, it was called Key Punch, I think. It was from a brewery in Cincinnati, and it was really damn tasty. So we ended up going back to the Brexy house, and we did not participate in the karaoke that apparently occurred that night. No babies for dinner. I just had I had a sausage. Do you really know what's in the sausage? You don't really know what's in the sausage. So we did that, and the No Religion Required crew was kind of tired. Everybody else was tired, so they went back. But we went to the Brexy house, had a couple of sours, hung out on the couch. The thing with Brexy, the thing with Brian and Lexi is they're freaking tiny. So they were like on one half of one cushion on on the couch. Apparently, Brexy has been banned as a name. That didn't take very long. We got to hang out a little bit. We got to talk. We got to talk with some of the other who were at the conference. Jenica and Patrick were staying there with their kids. Tucker and Chris were also staying, but they ended up going out with the Secular Saturday crew, and kind of just, there was a place with beer and bowling, which sounds pretty awesome to me, but I didn't get there. And they got back and they did a little karaoke. And my tradition of giving Chris beer at conferences continues to this day. I got him a nice Sioux from Nashville, and it was delicious and amazing. And on Sunday morning, did a nice Shoney's breakfast buffet, something I haven't done for years. Both you and I are from like the South, so we're used to Shoney's being something we actually did as something that was like a gift, like a birthday present thing, or we're going out to eat, and it was actually, I could consider a nice restaurant now. But it was fine for that purpose. And so we drove back to Atlanta, and that was that. And since Scott has been so nice, has been hanging on, I guess I can tell him to turn his mute off and say hi. What's happening, man?
Hey, it's great here in San Antonio. It was 250 degrees here today, so
oh yeah,
we're just trying to stay hydrated, and I'm staying hydrated with Kentucky bourbon tonight.
Yeah, no, I have this whole show persona. Someone gets beer. In fact, I think at one point Jen was saying like, "Where's all the beer?" And I didn't really bring that much, so I got wine tonight. That's with my sexy fur papa glass.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's classy right there.
That's classy. No, it was it was almost 100 degrees in Chattanooga on Saturday. So that was pretty darn hot. My one member of the chat room, Jeannie, has been asking questions. So did I make any good connections? I passed a few cards out. I got like the business cards from my show, and I have like 500 of them, and I think I've given out like 20. So I brought them all to the conference, and I probably gave out 5 or so. I would say we had, about 10 to 12 speakers and about 30 to 40 people who were guests there. So it was, it was not like the other conferences I've been to that have been pretty packed. Although, like the Nashville Nuns had multiple rooms, and some of them were smaller, and there were only maybe 20 people in a room. But some of these sessions, it was like you're having a conversation, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. With your T-shirt, I did get a shirt. I probably should have worn it tonight. All the speakers got shirts in it. I was wearing my Zachrilege shirt, which I've only worn like twice, and I had it on. They're like, "Oh, you have to wear the speaker shirt." I'm like, "Really?" So I tried to liven things up in the middle of the talk by taking my speaker shirt off, and I had my Zachrilege shirt on, but because that was the point where you're supposed to say, where people can find you. And I'm like, just read this shirt. So, yeah.
I can't confirm this, so I'm reluctant to bring it up, but I could have swore I saw a photo of Justin Bieber wearing a Zachrilege shirt. Do you know anything about that at all?
Well, there are 4 of such shirts in existence now. So The odds are better. I hear he's taking a year off to listen to my show, not to hang out with Jesus. That could be the case. No, I did try to give something back to the patrons because Hugh and Bobby and Ashley have been on since episode 1, and I got them shirts. Well, I didn't see them, wear them during the conference, so I want proof that they actually are happy to get that gift someday. Maybe we all can get together and hang out.
I've seen 3 or 4 on eBay. Just saying.
I mean, ultimately, at some point in the week, I was like, I'm not sure how many people are going to be there. Can we just kind of hang out and chat? Because I think that would have been just as good. Some of the talks were interesting. I know they had I think the head of the Democratic Party in the county we were in, and she was talking about how they had to kind of organize because the Republican Party is pretty entrenched there. And I guess, of course, I dropped something on the floor. It's all about the sound quality, man. I'm just testing you. I'd edit that out, except I don't do that. But it was a good time. I don't know if anybody from Texas showed up. Josh Richards, who I interviewed a while back, who's ex-preacher, supposed to be there, but he got called into work, so he couldn't make it. So we had a few guests who couldn't show up. So it was relatively short turnaround. I know I did it in like 4 months. Probably didn't get the big enough names to get people to come, but we got a ton of people to come to Nashville, and Chattanooga's 2 hours away. And Chattanooga's a great city. See, my in-laws live there, but I never really see the city. Like I used to never see Nashville, even though my parents live there. So it was good to just get downtown and kind of hang out and try some different restaurants and try some different beers, that sort of thing. So it was good. Have they had conferences? I mean, Texas is such a big state. I don't even know how close you are to other cities that might have these events.
Let's see, it was about 3 or 4 years ago, American Atheist, I believe it was American Atheist, had their conference in Austin. And we had ApostaCon 2 or 3 years ago in Dallas. And other than that, that's all I'm aware of. We may have some smaller regional stuff, but those are the only 2 that's been in Texas in recent history.
Dang, Texas.
Yeah, well, we're extremely red here.
Well, I know in Atlanta, it doesn't seem like there have been that many conferences, although a lot of the people I talked to there were going to come to Dragon Con, which is in Atlanta on Labor Day weekend, because Dragon Con is kind of like a sci-fi convention, but there's also like a science skeptic kind of track going on. So some of my people will be there as well. So what's happening with you? What's that, since we last chatted? How are things going?
Things
the podcast,
are going,
the life.
The life is well. The family is well. The podcast is doing well. Doing pretty good. We're going to interview. Let's see, who are we going to interview? Dan Barker coming up. We've interviewed him before, and we're going to interview him on how an atheist can have purpose to life. So that should be pretty cool. And we're going to interview Guy P. Harrelson, who's written several books on critical thinking, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about. So we're looking forward to those 2 episodes. That should be pretty interesting. And we're enjoying doing it. Emily and I, we're having a great time. It's a lot of work, but we feel that we're getting the word out there about recovering from religion. That's why we're doing it to begin with.
So how's the hotline project going?
Really well. We've had a few changes to that. The first change, we're calling it the helpline now. So we can say helpline, that means the actual phone line and the chat line. And we have a way that you can schedule a helpline agent to call you. You get on recoveringfromreligion.org and fill out your name, telephone number, and a helpline agent will call you back at the time and date you request. So it's a lot easier to get through to a helpline agent. So those are a few changes that we've done. And of course, the helpline's still up. The number is 1-844-I-DOUBT-IT. And there's also the chat line option for those who feel a little bit more comfortable about chatting instead of talking verbally over the phone. So yeah, it's going pretty strong. And we're getting a lot more volunteers and getting a lot more action on the helpline.
So are you part of the helpline?
Yes, I am.
What is I guess, a session like when you're doing that?
Well, it varies. It could be a doubting believer who's been religious their whole life and they're starting to have questions and they just need someone to listen to them that won't judge them. It could be someone who's recently left their faith and they want to know what to do next. Maybe they're looking for a community. Maybe they want to know if, since they're an atheist now, do they have to carry some sort of card and register someplace? And it's like, no, it's not like that at all. And we have a variety of different calls, but it's very rewarding because you get to help people that really don't have anybody else to talk to about these things. Most of their friends or family, they're going to be biased. They're going to try to talk them back in the church. And talking to your preacher about possibly leaving the church is like a prisoner talking to their prison guard about escape plans. So that's where we come in. We don't judge them. We don't try to deconvert them. We just listen to them. And I've had some calls to where the caller jumps right in, talks about the issue for like 20, 25 minutes. And at the end of that, they take a deep breath and say, wow, I feel a lot better. Thank you. It's like, well, you're welcome. Now, not all callers are like that, but it just goes to show you sometimes you just need a person to listen to you. And that's where the helpline comes in.
Have you had really, I guess, tough calls? Like, I know you have specific rules on how to deal with different situations, but have you had something like that where you haven't quite known what you need to do?
Yeah, I mean, none of us are like trained therapists. Okay, we're just people that want to help or volunteers. So yeah, you can get caught off guard from time to time. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can always say, look, call back tomorrow night. I can have an answer for you. And we're also trained if someone is suicidal. We know the questions to ask, we know what to listen for, and we know what to do. And that involves transferring them to the suicide prevention center. And all of our agents know what to do in that case. So, yeah, we can get thrown a curveball. None of us are perfect. Well, I'm almost perfect. I'm getting there, but yeah, we do our best.
You do what you can, and
Absolutely.
it's still impressive. So how often is it? Like once a week? How does it work?
Well, that's another thing that changed. We used to have shifts that we would sign up and we would ask people to donate 2 hours per month. And now there's no more shifts per se. If someone's online and a call comes in and they're able to take that call, they take it in the same way with the chat line. So there's really no more hours. If you try to call at 2 o'clock in the morning, chances are you won't get through. But if you call during, like, say, 8 p.m., there's a good chance you'll be able to get along with someone. So the bottom line is you give as much time as you can give. If you're really busy and you're not able to devote any time at all, then you don't give any time. If you got free time, nothing going on, then you can devote a little bit more time.
So you get to kind of check in and say, "Hey, I'm available," and then if there are calls, you take them. If there's you do chats as well.
Yes, a lot of people like the chat option because it gives you a little bit more privacy. If there's someone in the home that don't know you're an atheist or don't know that you're questioning, then you probably won't be overheard. And sometimes people at work that's supposed to be working, they're not working all that hard. So on the left hand of the screen, they have the chat up and they have the rest of the work on the right side of the screen. So that's another reason that people chat instead of actually pick up the phone and call.
The hardest part of the podcaster thing I did this week was when I had a troll come up and ask a question. Do you get trolls, and how do you deal with them?
The statistic is around 3% of the calls. And that's mainly during the summer months when kids are out of school. And it doesn't happen very often. And again, our agents are trained to know what to listen for and how to handle that. We're never rude to anybody. Our agents have the right to hang up at any time that they feel necessary. So we get a few, but not all that many.
Yeah, I would guess that was the case. I don't remember. You a bourbon guy?
Yes, I was born and raised in Kentucky. They have the Ark, you know.
Well, we were going around, of course, every state has weird liquor laws. So that first place we went to just had beer and wine, and he was looking for a particular kind of bourbon. Actually, he was looking for Crown Black for Ashley. He just gives booze around all the time. See, when you're really well known, if people, if you just give them booze, they'll remember it. But at the liquor store we went to, he asked the guy there about a bourbon called Elmer T. Lee, which I always started calling it Elmer Fudd so I can remember it. It's some bourbon that a guy made, and he ended up dying, and they're still releasing it really slowly, so it's hard to find. And the restaurant we went to had it, so he had like 3 glasses of that thing, and he could not explain to them on the rock, like a big thing of ice, like the people working there couldn't figure out how to do that for him. But I suppose it worked out because he got the good stuff. So I don't know if you ever heard of that kind. That's just something that came up this weekend, and I was like, oh, I'll just lock that away for memory's sake.
That one I've never heard of. I have a good friend who lives in Tennessee that every Christmas he sends me a bottle of Jack Daniels, and he always asks me, did I enjoy the Jack Daniels? And I said, yeah, it works really great for killing weeds in the backyard, but I wouldn't drink that shit. But that's me. I'm a bourbon snob.
Well, there was Four Roses was one. I'm trying to remember the one he actually got because he got one for Mandisa. But all I know is went back to Hugh's place and he had various bottles, and I would say a good dozen different bottles of bourbon. I don't know. It was different stuff for different times. Now, I of course picked up some beer, and it's sometimes hard to tell. What kind of night is it? Are we going for the good stuff? Or are we going for the get you through the night stuff? So you have to have a little of both.
Right. And Four Roses is good, especially single barrel. That's good stuff. Blanton's is good, kind of pricey, but I think my favorite is probably Maker's Mark. That's a really good flavor.
Is that out of Kentucky?
Yes.
Because that was my family lives in Baton Rouge. They're big into the Bud Light for some reason, but they really like Makers. So yeah, we that was like, I think I was sick for like a month and I hadn't had anything to drink. I'm like, here, have some Makers. And I was like, oh gosh, wow. Because I did try to take a sip of that Elmer T. Lee, and it was like wasted on me. I mean, anything that high in alcohol to me is like turpentine, so it's a little bit strong. That's what's interesting about bourbon barrel like beers. They don't always say what bourbon, right?
Right.
That's important.
Yeah.
You should know that.
Yeah, there's one I like called Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale. That's really good. A little pricey, but good taste to it.
It's probably like in my normal zone of price. I've seen that before. They had one. I can't remember which cocktail. It was like an old fashioned, and it was actually pretty good. Pretty much every type of beer flavor is available now. I had a friend who got some beers from New England, not from Vermont, but New England. And one of them was Pappy's Porter. I think it was Trillium, which is in Boston. And it was the hoppiest porter I ever had in my life. And I just don't like hoppy beer. So I was like, sorry, dude, didn't like that one.
Pappy, if Pappy's in the name, they can charge more because the granddaddy of all bourbons is Grandpappy Winkle. It's very rare.
Right. Yeah. There's, I feel like that's one that's usually hard to find what's available. And I think there's some like variant of a beer I've heard of that's like, oh, it's Pappy Winkle barrels. Yeah.
Yeah. There's, when they do release a batch, all the liquor stores, there's a lottery, and they're lucky to get one bottle, and it usually goes to someone they know. It's if you have to ask how much it is, you can't afford it.
Good point. Now we do have an atheist running for office, Aaron Ra. Now, if you ran for office, what would your slogan be?
Get off my lawn? No. Well, first of all, it wouldn't take very long for my opponent to go through my Facebook page and find enough dirt on me to knock me out of the race. I don't know. I've never thought about running, but yeah, especially in Texas, it'd be very hard for him to win, or any atheist really, especially someone that's that out. Um, but something like I'm an atheist, get over it, or something like that, maybe.
So how's the secession going? Has it happened yet? Or now that the president's Republican in name, at least, it's okay?
Well, could you repeat that again? I didn't quite catch it.
I was like, is Texas completed with their secession yet?
Well, it's funny. A couple of years ago, someone asked Rick Perry, back when he was governor, if Texas should break away and make its own country. And his reaction was, not just yet. Now, I think anyone else would chuckle and say no, but he had to add that not just yet. So that makes me kind of worry about that. I don't know. We do have our own power grid, so we have that going for us. But I don't think we'll ever break. I used to live in Hawaii, and the same thing came up with Hawaii. They, from time to time, had serious talk about breaking away from the United States, but I don't think they would ever make it. They had a dock workers strike there one time, and the whole state was dangerously low on toilet paper. And this was about to cause huge riots because everyone was out of toilet paper, right? Except for the military bases. We were just fine. But yeah, the general population in Honolulu, they were getting down to like half a row per home. So I don't think they could break away from the United States just on the toilet paper factor alone.
Yeah, Hawaii is interesting because there was this period in like late 19th century, early 20th, where like we can become an imperial power too, and we sort of Hawaii was sort of part of like, well, it's right in the middle, and it's really nice, so we'll take it, and we'll ship them food, so they're happy, sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure they could support themselves, with their military by, firing coconuts at the oncoming enemy. I'm sure they'll be just fine. They could probably do that.
So you've been keeping track of the current, was it legislative session in Texas, where it seems to be all about hating on trans people and trying to all but ban abortion?
They've just about banned abortion here. They've just about done it. Yeah, with the bathroom bill, the big thing is not doing the right thing, but how much money is it going to cost us if we do the right thing? That's what it boils down to. A lot of people think the state's going to lose a lot of money, and a lot of people don't care because they're anti everything. So I don't know. It just depends if they can convince them that if they lose this much money, it's going to really affect the voters. So that's what it kind of comes down to, I think.
Yeah, and whether, I don't know, it's like they really did a special legislative session for all this, but that's when you get a supermajority. What kind of happens?
Yeah, and there's a lot deeper issues going on than just who can use what bathroom. I've always said, you can pee next to me. You can't pee on me, but you can pee next to me. That might be my campaign
I was
slogan.
like, there you go. It's I was waiting for it in a bumper sticker, but it does. So what's like a personal interest of yours that's something that maybe you haven't ever talked about on the podcast? I don't know how open you are.
Let's see. I would have to say global warming, because we don't talk about a lot of political issues on our podcast because we're representing a nonprofit organization. I don't even want to get close to, politics. But global warming is something that we better do something about now before it's too late. And there's just so many elected officials that say, don't worry about it. God would never allow that to happen. And some even say, don't worry about it because there will be a rapture and all the Christians will be lifted up to heaven and all the sinners will be left here on earth to deal with global warming and listen to Justin Bieber albums 24/7. So, when we have that kind of mindset going on with our elected leadership, it makes me scratch my head. But They're ignoring science and they're not hurting themselves so much, but a few generations down the road, they're going to have a bigger problem, and it's going to be a lot tougher to do something with that. And it's all about change, and people don't like change. It would have to be, going to electric cars instead of gas-powered cars, and think, the auto industry and the oil industry. It would be pretty tough to make that change and to convince people that, climate change is real. You got to do something about it sooner than later.
I mean, I've heard that something like if you covered 2 states basically with solar panels, we could kind of catch up on. And I love those. The oil lovers are all like, well, what about when it's cloudy? I'm like, we store power. We can do that now. Not just the lightning's not just waiting for you in your power plug at the moment.
Right. That's like saying, what if the car runs out of gas? Yeah. Not a great argument. Yeah, we have the capability of wind power, solar, tide. If we implement that, we won't need any kind of fossil fuels at all. And I don't have to tell you, every time we go to the pump, we're putting dollars in the terrorist hands. And we do that on like a weekly basis. It's like, here, ISIS, here's $10. Here's $20 for a bomb. Have fun.
Well, it seems like that's what Hobby Lobby's up to these days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What's the cost of their Bible museum they want to build? It's a lot more than the Ark. The Ark was 101 million.
I'm telling you, there was a guy who kept bilking the Mormon church and making like fake documents from their history, and they would buy them to hide them. This is an industry we need to get into. I feel like we're in the ground floor right now. We got a shot. This could work. Or we could just keep doing our podcasts, and that would be fine too. I don't want to keep you too long since I talked for about 20 minutes. We've been talking for, 25 minutes or so. Don't want to make this like the full hour episode. So thank you for coming on, but I want to let people know where they can find you if they want to volunteer.
Sure.
Beverages, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we can always use volunteers. Go to recoveringfromreligion.org and click on the volunteer button, and we'll get you going with the helpline. And again, if you want to call the helpline, the number is 184-I-DOUBT-IT. And of course, you can always go to recoveringfromreligion.org and initiate a chat if that would work better for you. And you can even donate to a refined organization by going to recoveringfromreligion.org and click on the donate button. And our podcast email is podcast@recoveringfromreligion.org. And we'd be glad to hear from everybody. And I certainly appreciate you having me on the show tonight, Zach. You're a gentleman and a scholar. And I hope our paths meet one day again at a great conference.
I certainly do. Please do hang on, because I want to chat for you for a second after I hang up here. So if you want to support this show, be like Bobby, Hugh, Teody, and Marissa, half of which own Zachrilege Cast shirts. The other half, I'll get you. Support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/Zachrilege, ZACHRILEGE. Follow me on Twitter, like my Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook. Send all hate mail to zachrilege.cast@gmail. I was about to say, send all hate mail to podcast@recovering. Just kidding. Just kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that. They love you. They're good people. Thank you for being on tonight. I guess thanks to me. I have my little space for the guest names on. Thanks to me for being on tonight. Actually, the next 2 weeks I do have lined up. So Thomas of Holy Kool-Aid next week, Wendy Marsman of Women Beyond Belief on in 2 weeks. So for the listeners, stay safe. If you need to chat, I am available. And if, Recovering from Religion doesn't answer your calls, they will. If you're an atheist and feel alone, you're not alone. Reach out. Let's chat and get that human connectedness that keeps people coming back every Sunday. Stay skeptical. I love all y'all, and good night.